Hello, Sparkleketeers. I have been away because I was actually working on an operetta that had its debut on Saturday for the American Cancer Society through Fantasy Fair in Second Life, and it went pretty well. We had about 200 listeners, and people have asked for repeat performances, so that's happening right now. There's a larger video coming that has some very pertinent evidence, but here's this funny skeet from Liana that happened today, and I just had to look at it because it's way too funny. So here's Liana saying, "Liars are funny. They demand that you present evidence to prove them wrong, when the evidence is in their own words. Like when they say only 2 people worked on a project, so absolutely everyone knew who someone was talking about. And then they name 3 additional people who worked on said project. Oops!" Okay, so what Girlfriend is talking about here is the fact that there were 3 volunteers in the project. 1 volunteer at the time, which I laid out in the website and the video. Now, Liana, once again, is misleading you by telling you that I said things that I didn't actually say. I have said that there are only 2 people listed on the Kickstarter page. Only 2 team members listed on the Kickstarter page. And that will be pertinent, as we will see very soon. This is another example of Liana trying to manufacture a contradiction by removing all of the context. So let's insert that sucker back in, alright? So Liana in her cancellation video said this about the person she had a disagreement with.
This obviously created an untenable working relationship, so I've lost a person I needed to complete the game.
So, this is obviously someone who is crucial to the project and without whom she can't complete the game. In her own words, right? So that's very important because, again, not being able to continue on a project without them kind of makes them an essential project member. So let's take a quick look at the Song of Sparkle Fucking Kickstarter page. Liana is listed as a creative director. She only had 1 task, the task of writing the game dialogue, scripts, and puzzles. If you look at my tasks here, I'm listed as a character and background art, level design, animation, music, and engine implementation. So the division of work, I essentially handled 95% of the tasks of the project. Liana's 5% was essentially the creation of the scripts. By percentage, I'm not talking about necessarily level of importance, but about the division of labor insofar as the number of the tasks related to actually making the game. I need to state that because Liana otherwise is going to try to twist that. So, just for the record, I was creating the character sprites, creating environments, composing the music, creating the animations, creating the special effects for attacks, writing the systems, implementing the engine, building the levels, modifying the combat system, all of that. Liana was writing the dialogue, story, and puzzles. Now, let's get back to Liana's absolutely bonkers claim. There are 3 volunteers that I identified in my documentation, on the website and in the video. One of them was Jess, who worked on the level, 1 level, before being dismissed by Liana for breaking NDA, for showing a conversation to her mother. I will remind you that since then, Jess has publicly admitted that she is autistic. Her mother is a special ed teacher, and Jess relied on her mother quite a bit. So this is important because of Liana's track record with autistic individuals, as you will see in the video that will be coming up next. So, Jess did that and then was dismissed before the Kickstarter was even finished, so she was not a crucial team member. Then we had Song, who was brought in to be a character NPC creator. She was a Liana Kerzner client, and I created that character generator for her. Liana dismissed her, and then she brought in Mara, who did some character NPCs before ghosting Liana for reasons that Liana never specified, but by this point, I think we pretty much have a good idea of why, right? Just to put things in perspective, of the 3 team members, 2 of them have stated that Liana was abusive to them. And the third one, well, nobody can find them because, again, they ghosted Liana, they deleted their Telegram account, and they were probably the wisest one of all because they put as much distance between them and Liana Kerzner as they possibly could. So let's go back to that nonsense claim of hers. Because if you recall, the argument that I made was that the content of her statement made it easy to identify the team member that she was talking about. In that allegedly professional statement, which allegedly was crafted by a PR specialist, I guess she must have gotten him off Fiverr because it was an absolute nightmare of a PR statement where she essentially went into the tea that she claimed she wasn't going to spill. And it was pretty one-sided, throwing my husband under the bus while never mentioning her husband, who, incidentally, accessed $3,000 from the Kickstarter fund without authorization, and also was, according to Liana, responsible for some of the delays on her end. She essentially identified me by referring to my spouse, referring to a very public shot that he allegedly took to someone on Twitter. So if it was very public, then by referencing him, she immediately identified him. Especially if anyone looked at the Kickstarter page and saw that Asher is the only spouse mentioned on the Kickstarter page. Any and all ambiguity is also eliminated by the fact that she pointed out that without that team member, she could not complete the game.
Alert! 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 Space-time rupture detected. Temporal anomaly. Paradox. Positively identified. Schrodinger's problematic person. Liana Kerzner is right when she says people's stories tell on them. We shall take hers. When she needs to defend herself, no one knows who we are. When she needs to justify herself, then everyone knows what we did. Somehow, everyone is able to tie these terrible actions to Kerzner without knowing who did any of them. Make sense of that one. Somebody must be, somewhere, because this has been her story for the last 18 months, and not one person seems to have challenged her on it.
Problematic, problematic.
We resume our normal time stream.
So, this is one of the reasons that I'm pretty confident that whomever Liana consulted, probably another Liana Kerzner client that she was trying to get free work out of, has very little or no experience in doing actual PR work, because all of the PR specialists I've shown the announcement to have been aghast. Reference by inference, social markers, they're a thing, look it up. So I'll ask you this, of that team division right there, which is the only thing backers and anyone else could see, exactly who would you say, if you had to guess, is the crucial team member Liana couldn't do without to finish the game? Could it be some rando that is not listed on the Kickstarter page doing volunteer work, making little ooh-woo faces on furry character sprites? Or, I don't know, the person doing the animation, art, music, engine implementation, and everything else that Liana wasn't doing? It's not rocket science. Inference here is incredibly easy, and Liana made it even easier with that disaster of a statement. But don't take my word for it, because on the website, I have proof that we were identified within 24 hours of that statement. And it wasn't by us. Asher and I didn't speak for 19 days after the cancellation video. Here we have 4 people who posted on Twitter and of course that cesspool that is Kiwi Farms, identifying us, positively identifying us as the people Liana Kerzner mentioned. So once again, Liana is lying, but that should not surprise you again, because it's a day that ends in Y. So now I do want to make a commentary because I think I've earned that at this point. Get something potentially off my chest here. Liana does that all the freaking time anyways, 4 times a week on her YouTube channel where she airs her grievances. There are so many things that she is carrying that she apparently needs to get off her chest that you have to wonder if her chest has the tensile strength of the Golden Gate Bridge by this point. Liana Kerzner has unironically referred to herself as an exceptional woman and us as mediocre men. That's kind of hilarious because, as I pointed out, the other crucial team member was me. And still, with all of my delays, when I wasn't able to work on the game for 5 months, I was still able to deliver a demo. At the end, even doing Liana's job for her because she had not finished the combat demo scenario. That scenario was unfinished, as you can see on the website and the video proof from the Google Docs that showed she did not work on that even when we were supposed to be working on the deadline for the combat demo. Unlike Liana, I don't claim to be Jean Grey and pretend I can look into her mind like she does with everybody else, but in my opinion, I think that she got very sore at the fact that I did the job for her and that people praised the writing in the demo. I created that temporary scenario that was supposed to be a placeholder until she got her act together, got her head out of her ass, and finished the script so we could deliver a finished demo. And it turned out that the backers loved the writing. I know because I still have the feedback forms they provided. I guess it must have stung her that despite the delay of 5 months, I came back and pretty much did just about everything. And I guess that in the end, I proved that perhaps I was the only crucial team member because I was able to produce deliverables and Liana never could. None of her pieces were ever finished. And by this point, I've also more than aptly demonstrated it. In 1 year, I have composed 2 whole albums. The next one is launching on May 19th called The Cruelty Economy. Over the last 3 months, I also composed and wrote an operetta that's an hour and 20 minutes long that had its debut yesterday on the 9th for the American Cancer Society. We also had 200 people attending and they've asked for a repeat performance so that people in the European region can see it.
Then the deed will be done, and the tale will be told. How the cycle once told, with gossamer ground, so sorrow will remember.
So once again, the record doesn't lie, but Liana sure does. And she's wilding out there, and the reason she's wilding is because she doesn't want you to look at the evidence. She keeps screaming lies, insinuations, smears, and all sorts of things, but we're presenting you with the facts and receipts. That's not an insinuation. It's her own words, her own actions. She's also claiming that we're hoping that you will look at the large amount of evidence and go, oh gosh, there's so much of it. It must be true. No, dudes, no. In the website and in my videos, I keep telling you don't believe what I'm saying. Use your own brains. Use your own eyes because Liana doesn't want you to. She wants you to take her word at face value and on faith. I don't want that shit. I want you to look at the evidence and use what's between your ears. Come to your own conclusions and snap out of that cult because the only person dealing with insinuations here is Liana. I mean, if you look at her skeets on her Blue Sky feed, my God, she's wilding out there. And her language, again, is very reminiscent of Donald Trump when he gets caught in a lie. And how do I know that? Well, let's take a look at a few examples.
I think you are a terrible reporter.
You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN.
That you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say.
It's very simple. You're a nasty person.
What's your reaction
Well,
to
I
that?
was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would. Because you're horrible people. Horrible people.
These are thugs and animals and horrible people, but you can't hit anybody harder than we've hit them.
Now, here's the thing. You might notice I'm being sassy here, and to be honest, I deserve the right to be sassy after putting up with that bullshit for 18 months, but I guarantee you this. Nothing I do here will ever be as gruesome and disgusting as this.
I mean, she hit send. This is why I think it was her and not some troll. She hit send on the shitty message she sent through the It's Not Therapy contact form 4 times. I got 4 identical copies of this message. And I'm like, hi, Stalker Chan. Drunk again on Labor Day weekend, huh, Stalker Chan? Nothing has changed, Stalker Chan. How sad for you, Stalker Chan.
That she painted it like I took back the offer to a domestic abuse victim because I made her. She's mad. She just has a temper.
And people emails in the middle of the night, tantrum, and abuse their online forum, tantrum. Why isn't the tantrum working? I'm gonna throw another tantrum. I'm not throwing a tantrum. How dare you say I'm throwing a tantrum? I'm gonna have another tantrum until you give me what I want. That is what adults do. Oh, I'm afraid. Of course, he goes on the internet. She hurt me. She mental health stigma. She this, she that. He blamed us for his panic attacks, and we were hurting him. And
I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Maybe that's what I said.
When she gets in it, and
Drops the thing, walks off the stage crying. Her mother's crying, her father's.
And we were, I need water. Help me. I need water. Help.
Just for the record, what you've seen here is Liana on her YouTube channel mocking people who are either ex-Liana Kerzner clients or people with neurodivergent conditions. The mental health advocate, the mental health journalist, the peer counselor who wants you to trust her with your mental health. But that's not all. There's much worse coming, and I have told you that Liana has betrayed confidential information regarding her Liana Kerzner clients. Now that the operetta is done, you're going to see that in the next video. I never make claims I can't back up, I've told you that. You'll also notice that the moment I started slightly matching Liana's sardonic rhetoric and tone without going as far as she does, she immediately starts screaming humiliation and smears. Like in this tweet right here. And I think it's incredibly telling and incredibly lacking in self-awareness that not for a single moment has it caused her to reflect on her actions and what she's doing. Because in the end, what Liana is describing as terrible is simply this: exposing her actions for what they are, such as mocking in some of the most cruel and childish ways on a public YouTube channel with a large following the trauma, pain, and grief of neurodivergent individuals who have a beef with her and who have said, whether or not they have a legitimate claim, that they have been hurt by her. The fact that she has betrayed the private information of Liana Kerzner's clients the moment their professional relationship ended in an acrimonious fashion, which, using her own standards, can only be seen as an attempt to cause intentional harm and humiliation to those people. If you want to speak about intentional harm and humiliation, in January of 2025, Liana disclosed my husband's sexual trauma that he suffered as a child to her Discord server, providing inaccurate details that she claimed had been written by him in his blog. When you look at the blog, including the version that was archived on the day of publication by the Internet Archive, there are no details in that blog. There never were. Liana was the only person outside of his mother and his therapist that Asher ever confided that information in. And Liana took to her Discord server and disclosed a distorted account of that trauma to her server in order to mock and humiliate Asher, dismissing it, saying, "That's the trauma, that was it," implying that it wasn't traumatic enough, so therefore it should be dismissed. And it's not that it didn't break containment, because a few months later, a troll on Twitter threw a screenshot of that conversation at Asher. And it wasn't from our screenshot collection, because we actually don't have a screenshot collection. We have server logs. But that didn't stop there. You see, Liana, in a blue sky streak, which she would have called an explosion if it had been done by anyone else but her, disclosed those distorted details yet again, also implying that my husband had oversold his trauma, because she apparently, deeply unqualified though she is an arbiter of that. And twice now, she has claimed that she was not the source of those details, which funnily enough are also the narrative that Kiwi Farms embraced. So here's the thing. Liana Kerzner knows that there were no details on that blog. She read the article. So why did she share those distorted details? Well, if we use her own framework, it clearly was a deliberate intent to shame and cause harm and humiliation to Asher as far back as January of 2025. The thing that Liana says is terrible and horrible, people territory, like Trump does when he gets caught in a lie, is a very simple thing. Liana doesn't want you to look at what she does. It's a crime to her. She only wants you to look at the words that she puts over her actions like a blanket. Because when you take a step back and you look at what she actually does and the spirit behind so many of her actions, it will give you pause. And any reasonable person will look at her and go, this is not someone any neurodivergent or at-risk individual should ever trust with their mental health or their private details. But if you think I should make a stronger case to say that, don't worry, I gotcha. The next video will tell you all about that. In any case, I hope you have a great week and consider donating to the American Cancer Society.